As we're learning incredible new details this hour about the circumstances surrounding his death. His front door open, scattered pills on the bathroom countertop, one dog in the closet, two still alive on the.
So as well known as Gene Hackman was, neighbors tell us that he and his wife led intensely private lives here in Santa Fe, their longtime home. And while we've been learning more about this case, there is still so much we don't know.
We're learning more and more about the mysterious circumstances surrounding Gene Hackman's final days. His home in Santa Fe, where he and his wife Betsy Orokoa lived a quiet, private life, became the center of a baffling investigation after a routine visit turned into something far more sinister. Hackman, the Oscar-winning actor who
Breaking news, you're looking at video of one of the last times Oscar winner Gene Hackman, a known recluse in recent years, was seen in public.
Famously kept a low profile in his retirement, was found unresponsive in his home, along with his wife, in separate rooms. What investigators uncovered in those eerie final moments has left everyone, from law enforcement to fans, searching for answers. It all began with a frantic emergency call. A longtime caretaker arrived at the Hackman estate, expecting a routine check-in, but was instead greeted with a strange and unsettling scene. The front door was ajar, a rare sight for someone known to value their privacy. Inside,
and here in Santa Fe, Sheriff's Department officials here working behind me have yet another high-profile case on their hands. Aaron, you and I covered at length the Alec Baldwin case, that fatal shooting on the set of the movie Rust. This is the same investigative team that worked that.
The house was still, with no signs of life. In separate rooms, both Gene and Betsy were discovered unresponsive. Initially, it seemed as though they had passed away peacefully, but there were troubling details that didn't quite add up. A space heater lay near Betsy's body, and pills were scattered across the bathroom countertop, sparking suspicions of a sudden, possibly chaotic, event. At first, there were no signs of external harm, which led authorities to believe it might have been a tragic accident. But as the investigation deepened,
that initial findings note no external trauma to either individual. They say that carbon monoxide toxicology reports have been requested. Finally, as sheriff's officials gather information, it's worth pointing out that this could take weeks or months before we know exactly what the cause of is. That's because these medical examiner cases often take time in order to get to the root cause of these.
And questions grew. Adding to the complexity, the FBI became involved. What began as a local investigation quickly escalated when rumors suggested that there might be more at play than a simple domestic tragedy. Some speculated that Hackman and Orokoa could have been targeted, perhaps due to Hackman's reclusive lifestyle and the secluded nature of their property. Tension with neighbors had reportedly existed in the years leading up to their deaths, though nothing confirmed that a third party was involved. There were other oddities. Despite the front door being open, nothing appeared disturbed inside, and no valuable items seemed to be missing. Could this have been a robbery staged to look like something else? The couple's 3 dogs were also part of the strange narrative. One was found dead in a closet, while the other 2 were alive and appeared healthy. How had they survived without food or water?
But they've clearly been for several days, and I'm saying days plural, in order to get that kind of mummification. One of the ways of figuring this out, obviously, is from the scene investigation to find out when did they last pick up the mail, when did they last check in with relatives, phone calls, those kind of things, because people generally will communicate with others during the course of their time.
The timeline seemed to suggest that the couple may have been deceased for over a week before being discovered, a fact uncovered through Hackman's pacemaker data, which showed its last activity on February 17, 9 days earlier. Yet, their absence hadn't been noticed by anyone in their close-knit community, with the scene ruled out for carbon monoxide poisoning and the condition of Betsy's body raising more questions. Signs of mummification usually take weeks to develop. The investigation turned into a puzzle that didn't seem to fit. How could their bodies show such signs of decomposition, yet Hackman's pacemaker data suggested they had been dead only a few days?
Was a dog who was alive in the house and a dog also that belonged to them who was outside the house.
Right, but the door being ajar means, what Judy describes, which is they could have been there 10 days or 2 weeks, meant that the dogs could have had access to come in and out of that doorway. They might have had access to food and to water.
As authorities examined the scene further, they discovered additional clues: 2 cell phones, bottles of medication, a Tylenol bottle, and a 2025 monthly calendar. The presence of these items only added more intrigue, pointing to a deeper mystery that may involve more than just an accident. Authorities are now looking into the couple's financial dealings and their charitable contributions. Could their generosity have made them targets? Or was something else behind their deaths? Theories abound, but no answers have emerged yet.
As Hollywood gets ready to honor its best at the Academy Awards this weekend, there are still unanswered questions about the of two-time Oscar winner Gene Hackman and his wife. The couple was found this week in their New Mexico home. On Friday, investigators ruled out carbon monoxide poisoning and revealed other clues that may lead them to determine what did happen.
Investigators are analyzing cell phone data, text messages, and phone records to try to piece together a timeline of events. Meanwhile, the fate of the couple's German shepherds only adds to the mystery. How did they survive without their owners for so long? As we wait for toxicology reports that may take months, the public's fascination with the Hackman case continues to grow. Gene Hackman, a man who once played relentless characters like Detective Popeye Doyle in The French Connection and Lex Luthor in Superman, was not just an icon on screen but a man who lived a quietly extraordinary life. Friends, neighbors, and colleagues all described him as a humble and generous figure.
Much of the investigation is happening just up this road behind gates and a guard in an affluent neighborhood where homes are separated by acres of land. That's where Hackman and his wife chose to live, decidedly.
Detective Popeye Doyle in The French Connection and Lex Luthor in Superman was not just an icon on screen but a man who lived a quietly extraordinary life. Friends, neighbors, and colleagues all described him as a humble and generous figure, someone who valued his privacy but was deeply involved in his community. For those who knew him, Hackman's passing comes as a shock, especially under such mysterious circumstances. His longtime friend Clint Eastwood spoke about Hackman's incredible skill as an actor, while Dustin Hoffman remembered their early days as struggling actors, amazed by how far they both had come. The stories from Hackman's Santa Fe neighbors are filled with admiration for the man who helped others without seeking recognition. Now, with his passing, the question remains, was it an accident, a tragedy, or something darker? The unanswered questions surrounding Hackman's final days are enough to make even the most seasoned investigator pause. What really happened inside that secluded New Mexico home? And will we ever truly know the full story? As the investigation continues, we'll all be watching closely, hoping that the mystery will eventually unravel. Until then, we are left with the legacy of Gene Hackman, a man who not only captured our hearts on screen but whose life off screen was just as fascinating and layered as any role he played.
Have investigators been able to get into the obtained cell phones?
Not at this time. We have them in our possession. We'll be analyzing cell phone data, phone calls, text messages, events, photos in the cell phone to try to piece a timeline together.
It seems like you're referring to a detailed narrative about the mysterious death of the legendary actor Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Orokowa, in their Santa Fe home. Here's an attempt to summarize and explain it in a clearer way. Gene Hackman, the celebrated Oscar-winning actor, was found dead alongside his wife in their New Mexico home under unusual circumstances. The discovery was made by their longtime caretaker.
On Wednesday, February 26, 2025, at approximately 1:45 p.m., Santa Fe County Sheriff's deputies were dispatched to 1425 Old Sunset Trail, where Gene
arrived
Hackman,
at the property
95,
to check on the couple.
and his wife
the front
Betsy
door was found
Orokowa,
slightly open,
65,
and upon
and a
entering,
dog were found
the caretaker
deceased.
found both Hackman and his wife unresponsive in different parts of the house. Initially, there were no obvious signs of foul play or injury, which led authorities to believe they may have passed away peacefully. However, several puzzling details emerged. Scene of the house: the presence of a space heater near Betsy's body, pills scattered across the bathroom countertop, and no visible signs of forced entry all raised red flags. The timeline: Hackman's pacemaker, which records activity, revealed that the couple had likely been dead for at least 9 days before anyone found them. The unusual mummification of Betsy's hands and feet further deepened the mystery, as it usually takes weeks for such a process to begin, yet the pacemaker's data pointed to a much shorter time frame. 3 dogs were in the house. One was found lifeless in a closet, while the other 2 appeared healthy, with one even roaming outside. This suggested the dogs had survived for several days without any care, but how? The open front door could have allowed them to.
Due to the unusual circumstances of 2 decedents in the residence, there was a concern for scene safety. Santa Fe City Fire personnel and the New Mexico Gas Company were requested to the scene to test for carbon monoxide or other foreign elements. The scene was deemed safe, and approximately 9:30 p.m., a search warrant was issued and executed on the residence.
Come and go freely, but it remained unclear how they managed the FBI's involvement. Despite local authorities initially leading the investigation, the FBI became involved. Speculation grew that Hackman and his wife might have been victims of something more sinister, such as a robbery, though nothing of value seemed missing from the home. Hackman had long been known for his private and reclusive lifestyle, but some rumors about tensions with neighbors and possible financial dealings added another layer of mystery. His death, along with his wife's, remained unsolved, and the investigation is ongoing. Toxicology tests, a search of their phones.
From this search warrant, there were 2 green in color cell phones, 2 bottles of medication, 1 bottle of over-the-counter Tylenol, my request medical records, and a 2025 monthly planner calendar. Those items were secured from the residence for evidentiary purposes.
And other pieces of evidence are being examined, but it's still unclear whether their deaths were an accident, a result of their isolated lifestyle, or something more deliberate. The case has captivated both fans and investigators, with Hackman's sudden and quiet passing leaving many wondering if something darker lurked beneath the surface of his seemingly peaceful life. Do you need help exploring any specific parts of the investigation or details about his life or career? Feel free to ask. Certainly. Here's a more detailed breakdown of the mysterious circumstances surrounding Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Orokowa's deaths. The discovery: Gene Hackman, the famous actor, and his wife Betsy Orokowa were discovered unresponsive in their home in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
It's weird because I knew a lot of them, so they weren't intimidating. Meeting Gene Hackman the first time, was like, but then finding out he was so funny, that was a great thing.
Yeah.
When I saw him, he did that speech in Birdcage where he just says that thing about, and the leaves, and at that point you just slowly nod off. But he did it so, it's a hard thing to make boring hysterical. And he did it.
Yeah.
And he did it perfectly, he had
The discovery was made by their longtime caretaker, who arrived at their residence for a routine check. However, instead of the usual check-in, the caretaker found an unsettling scene. The front door of the house was slightly open, which was unusual because Hackman was known to value his privacy and rarely allowed visitors into his home. Upon entering, the caretaker noticed an eerie stillness inside the house, which was out of the ordinary. The bodies of Hackman and his wife were found in separate rooms of the house, unresponsive but without any obvious signs of injury. The scene inside the house: when the authorities arrived, there were several unusual details that raised suspicions. Space heater. A space heater was found near Betsy's body in the bathroom.
What was it like being on a set with Gene Hackman?
Well, Gene, people ask all the time, who's the best actor, who's the biggest star, who's the blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. The line's long for the great actors I've been able to work with, really is. But I would say probably Gene was the best actor that I'd ever worked with.
The way it was positioned suggested that it might have been knocked over during a sudden fall. This detail could suggest something happened abruptly, but the cause was unclear. Scattered pills. Pills were scattered across the bathroom countertop, which raised questions. The pills were later identified as common medications for thyroid and high blood pressure. But why were they scattered? Did they spill, or were they scattered during a chaotic moment before her death? No signs of forced entry. There were no visible signs of a break-in, and nothing of significant value appeared to be missing from the home, which led to confusion about whether this was a robbery gone wrong or something more sinister. The timeline and the pacemaker clue.
Well, this week, our community lost a giant, and I lost a dear friend, Gene Hackman.
Pacemaker data. One of the most critical clues came from Hackman's pacemaker. It recorded the last activity on February 17th, which was 9 days before the bodies were discovered. This suggests that the couple might have passed away around that time, yet no one had noticed for nearly a week and a half. The long gap before the discovery raised questions. Hackman and his wife were known for their reclusive lifestyle, but they were also regulars at local businesses. How did their absence go unnoticed for so long? Did something happen to keep people from realizing they were missing? The mummification mystery. Betsy's remains. There were reports that Betsy's body showed signs of mummification in her hands and feet. Mummification typically takes weeks to begin, and it is not typical for this process to start so quickly. However, the pacemaker data suggested they had passed away far more recently than this process would normally begin. Investigators are exploring if environmental factors, such as temperature, might have accelerated the mummification, or if other factors might be at play. The timeline doesn't seem to match with typical decomposition processes, making it an important piece of the puzzle.
He received 2 Oscars, but more importantly, he won the hearts of film lovers all over the world. Gene always said, "I don't think about legacy. I just hope people remember me as someone who tried to do good work."
One of the healthy dogs was roaming outside the property, while the other was near Betsy's body. The unusual part here is how these dogs survived for days without any care. There was food and water available, and the door being ajar may have allowed them to leave and return. But how could the dogs have been left for so long without anyone noticing? Potential robbery or foul play? Initially, investigators considered the possibility of a robbery, but nothing of significant value was missing from the house. Hackman was a well-known figure in Santa Fe, where he and his wife lived in a secluded neighborhood. He was also a philanthropist who co-owned a restaurant and supported various local causes. Speculation arose that Hackman and his wife might have been targeted for reasons beyond just theft, perhaps due to business dealings or local tensions.
Of legendary actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa, the couple along with their dog found in their New Mexico home this week by a maintenance worker. Listen, this is part of the 911.
Some theories pointed to the couple's possible involvement in financial ventures that could have made them targets. Hackman's involvement in business or local activities might have drawn unwanted attention, but again, this remains speculative. FBI's involvement. The FBI was brought in to assist with the investigation, which suggested that there could be more to this than a simple tragedy or accident. It raised questions about why federal authorities were interested in what initially appeared to be a domestic issue. Some rumors pointed to a robbery gone wrong or a dispute with neighbors as possible explanations. However, the lack of stolen items and the unusual condition of the bodies cast doubt on these theories. The role of the medications were found in the house, and some of them were identified as being used for common health issues such as thyroid problems and high blood pressure. The scattered presence of the pills could indicate that Betsy had been in a panic or that something happened suddenly before her death.
The reason the digital information from both of their cell phones is so important, Natasha, is because cell phones can track movement, and that's what they are going to look into. When did those cell phones cease not only to be used, but cease to move?
However, there was nothing immediately alarming about the medications themselves, so their role in the deaths is still unclear. The investigative process. Investigators are still piecing together details of the case. They are looking at various clues such as digital data from their cell phones to track activity and communications leading up to their deaths, the timeline of when they last communicated with others or received mail, possible phone records and text messages. Toxicology reports are pending, but results could take months, leaving many questions unanswered for now. A final mystery. The mystery surrounding Hackman's death continues to intrigue both fans and investigators. Some of the most significant unanswered questions are what happened during the 9 days between the time of Hackman's pacemaker activity and the discovery of the bodies,